name is Mark Haps. Today, we're talking about strongman competitions. There's this group of people called the Israelites, and they had this one dude in their army. He was called He-Man. Some people called him Samson. And one day he was out walking along, and there was like 1,000 Philistines coming up at his face. And he was like, oh no, I'm not having this. And he looked over and he happened to see a donkey. He grabbed its jawbone from it and he said, can I please borrow this?
And I just envision him using that jawbone to take out the Philistines old school Batman style. Pow! Pa-pow! Crack! Bazinga! Oh, you want some? Skull crack. What is this? Oh, bring it. Thump. Whoosh! Squab. Oh, you again? Chest crack. Weak. Kazam! Snap. Crackle. And he did all that with that one jawbone.
And don't worry, he gave it back to the donkey. He said, here you go, you can have this back. But needless to say, the Philistines, they didn't too much care for this guy much anymore. And so Samson, he fell in love like a lot of strong men do. And, he got a little weak in the knees for this chick named Delilah.
I get so weak in the knees, I can hardly speak. I lose all confidence.
And it just so happens that this Delilah chick happened to be a Philistine woman, and she was like devoted to the cause. She's like, I'm Philistine for life. True dat, she said. I'm pretty sure those were exact words. She let Samson fall in love with her, and she just played along, as women do, play with your heart. She played his heart like harp strings. But all the Philistine officials were like, hey, behind the scenes, like, hey, Delilah, do you think maybe you could go and see what makes Samson strong and stuff? Do you think you could do that for us? And she's like, sure. I got him wrapped around this little pinky right here. And so she hops on back, and she's like, hey, Samson, I love you and stuff, right? He's like, yeah, okay. She's like, why don't you hit me up with, what makes you strong and stuff? He's kind of like a cool guy. He's like, he's like legit. He likes riddles and stuff. And so he likes playing around with people. So he loves her and all that, but he still is like, you know what? You gotta take a bunch of strings that go on bows, but they still gotta be wet, and you gotta wrap me up in them, and then all my strength's gone. And she's like, oh, okay. Don't worry, I won't let anybody know. Well, then all of a sudden that night, all these Philistines jump onto Samson and they start wrapping him up with all these strings. And it doesn't work. He's like, nah, bro, bam, I'm out. Jacks him up. And then she's all like, hey, you're a meaniehead. You didn't tell me the truth. I want the truth. And he's like, you can't handle the truth. And she's like, yeah, I can. And he's like, oh, okay. So he tells her 3 more things that take his strength away. And she does all of them. But none of them work. He busts out of all these traps. He's like, yeah, right. So Samson, being the genius that he was, he's just he's just straight up in love with this chick, even though she's obviously playing him. What a dude. And then finally she comes to him the 4th time and she's like, hey, no, for real. For real this time. What's your strength? Tell me, for real. And he actually tells her the truth. You cut my hair, I'm done. I'm gone. And she's like, okay, cool. Well, your secret's safe with me. Not. He falls asleep. She says, chip, chop, chip. Chip, chop, chippy, chop. And then his hair's gone. He wakes up, he's bald. He's looking good, though. But his strength's gone. Now he's a weakie. And he's like, hey there, Delilah. What's the rest of the song? And Delilah's like, haha, can't believe you fell for it. Gotcha. Clocks him in the jaw. He's like, owie, love hurts. And then all the Philistines come in, they grab him. They say, haha, we got you now, broski. And then they chain him up. They beat him. They gouge out his eyes. He's like, no, I like those. And they chain him to these big columns in front of the Philistine city. because they want to make a mockery of him, as the Philistines do. And he prays to God, and he's like, God, man, I messed up. You know, you gave me this awesome gift. I let it roll. I let it slide because of this girl that you made. You know, just saying, and you know, maybe you could just give me one more hit of that strength. Just hit me one more time. Don't let me go out like this. Let me go out like a boss. And so God says, you know, all right, bam, you got it. He takes those columns and he pulls them down on top of himself. It brings like half the city down, or at least this one big building. And all these Philistines were in it. So he takes himself out and all these Philistines. And so the moral of the story is women. Can't live with them, can't live without them.
Well, this is the last night of this series that we've been looking at, like, do you know the stories? Remember the first night we talked about a guy that fell out of a window. What was his name? Yuki, or Eutychus. And then last week we talked about a guy on a donkey. Do you remember his name? Balaam. Yeah, Balaam and the talking donkey, Donkey Carl. And so tonight we're going to be talking about a guy called Samson and a woman called Delilah. So everybody say Samson. And then Delilah. All right, so Samson, I want you to think about, there's maybe like a picture of Samson. He was like a Superman to the Israelites. He was what they say handsome. He was strong. He was tall. I heard some whistling. Yeah, Samson was this cool guy, really handsome, strong, and tall. And at the time of his birth, whenever he was born, Israel were in slavery for 40 years. Say 40 years. 40 years, long time. Israel were in slavery. And so he was called to deliver Israel. Say deliver. Deliver. He was called to deliver Israel. He was going to be what they call the 12th judge. And so this is kind of setting the scene for what God had in store for this guy called Samson. Now, if you're familiar with the story, you would have heard that he's a pretty ferocious dude. Like, he killed a lion with his bare hands. Ooh. Killed a lion with his bare hands. You've seen in the video that he killed 1,000 Philistines with the jawbone of a donkey. Like, you know, last week we talked about donkeys and my love for donkeys, and just the fact that he took a jawbone from a donkey and killed 1,000 guys, and I'm not sure if he gave him back to the donkey or not, but that happened. And then another part of the Samson story was that he took this big gate to this city, and he destroyed it, and then he walked up a mountain with it. Like, super, super strong guy, and God had amazing things in store for him. But he had one weakness, and that was lust. He went from pleasing God to pleasing himself, and the Philistines knew this. And so we're going back to my friends here, my Lego characters, and they went to this woman named Delilah. Can we all say Delilah again? And so the guys in the blue here, let's think of them as the Philistines. And so they went to Delilah and said, entice him. Find out what makes him so strong and how we can overpower, bind, and humiliate him. And we will each give you 1,100 silver pieces. Now, the interesting thing was the name Delilah. Does anybody know what it means? No, it means flirtatious. Yeah, the name Delilah means flirtatious. So whenever we know that, we're kind of like in the story, oh yeah, she would be a good fit for the Philistines. And so they offer her 1,100 pieces of silver. Now, I'm not sure how much that would equate to dollars today, but I would say that would be many, many dollars. Would you agree? Many, many dollars. And so she's like, oh yeah, you're going to give me like many, many dollars. I'm in, I'm sold. And so she's going to go and she's going to entice this guy because she wants him to tell her the secret of his strength. And so she goes to him and is like, tell me what makes you so strong and how you can be overpowered, bound, and humiliated. She's pretty forward, right? She's pretty like straight to the point, doesn't mess around. Just tell me what makes you so strong. And he's like, if I were bound with 7 fresh bowstrings, not yet dried, I would become as weak as any other man. And how weird's that? Like, if I would be bound with bowstrings that are still not dry, I would become as weak as any other man. And so he does this, and so he lied, basically. He's telling her a riddle, and so she goes and she believes him, and she believes him 3 times. He lied to her 3 times, and on the 4th time, she was like, dude, I'm tired. I'm fed up of your lying. Will you just tell me what makes you so strong? And so these are some of the other ones, actually. He said, if I were bound tightly with new ropes that have never been used, I would become as weak as any other man. And so she comes and tells him, oh, the Philistines are upon you. And guess what? This is the final lie. And then the last one here is, my hair has never been cut because I have been set apart to God since birth. If my head were shaved, my strength would leave me and I would become as weak as any other man. And so this is the 4th time that she has asked Samson, and then he is, that's a little bit graphic, I know, sorry. But he is captured because the source of his strength has been found. Delilah has succeeded in her mission to find it. And so they get him and they gouge out his eyes. Ugh. They gouge out his eyes. They chain him to these pillars and they mock him. They make a mockery of this guy until he's like, okay, God, he's praying and he's like, God, I need some more strength. And so his hair actually begins to grow back again. And so you've seen that in the end of the video. Whenever his strength grew back again, he was able to knock down these pillars, and the pillars fell on top of the Philistines and himself. And so that's how Samson's story had ended. So that's just a brief summary. You all have seen the video and seen what happens. But I think that we can relate to Samson's story. And this is, and you're like, really? I'm not as buff as Samson. Wow. Samson, yeah, sure. I'm not as buff as Samson, but there's something I think that there is for us to take away from this lesson tonight, this story that we read in Scripture, and it's this. I think that we have our own Delilahs. Now you're maybe thinking, wait, what? Like, I don't have a person in my life named Delilah. And that's not really what I'm getting at. This is what I'm getting at when I say that. When I say that I think that we have our own Delilahs, I think of it as we have this bad habit that we continue to fall into even when we know how bad it is. That bad habit that we continue to fall into even when we know how bad it is. See, here's the thing. Samson knew that this was not good news. Samson was an Israelite, and he was to deliver them from slavery from the Philistines. And here is a Philistine woman coming to him, and he is like, he's tempted, and he's going to give in to that. He knows it's not good, but he gives in anyway. And when we are tempted, when somebody do you ever get whenever somebody just pushes your buttons? And you're like, they just know the buttons to push just to like frustrate you or just to anger you. But when you're tempted, when somebody pushes your buttons, we throw aside all that we know as truth and ignore it, and we surrender to that thing or that moment. And so that's what I mean whenever I say that I think that we have our own Delilahs that we deal with in our everyday life. There's a little representation of that. There's the goldfish, and the cat's like, I know I shouldn't do this. My owner will be very, very upset at me if I was to devour said goldfish, but I want them. So Samson knew that this was bad. Samson knew that this was really bad, but he gave in, and look what happened to him in the end. See, here's the thing, guys. We have all got that one weakness. Actually, maybe many more. We have got that weakness. There's something in our lives that we know that we shouldn't do, but we end up doing it anyway. The things that are tempting and somewhat appealing to us, and we're like, I really want to do that, but we know that we shouldn't. And here's the thing. Tonight, God actually wants to set you free from that. That representation of like Samson and the chains, just being chained to the pillar, it's somewhat similar to how we can be too whenever we're bound up with the things that we're tempted with. And God's just wanting to say, hey, I want to break you free from whatever that is in your life. And so I looked up Bible Gateway. Is anybody familiar with Bible Gateway? If you ever like type in a verse into like Google or something, it's usually the first one that pops up with like all of the different passages in Scripture. But anyway, they did like a list. They did a survey a couple of years ago on temptations, and like they did it among Christian people, and they said, okay, we want to get a list of all of the things that maybe are tempting you, et cetera, et cetera. And here's kind of the list. Here's 8 of the top 10. Yes, 8. Number 1 was being tempted to worry or be anxious. 60% of people that said that they were tempted by that, being worried or being anxious. Number 2, procrastinating or putting things off. That was me. You know that you've got a test coming up, or you know that you've got a big thing at work, and you're like, that can wait. That can wait. So often tempting. Number 3, eating too much. 55% of people said that they're just tempted to eat too much. Guys, these are serious. Let's not be joking, please. Number 4, spending too much time on media, whether that be a phone, whether that be a gaming center, whether that be something technology-based. Number 5, spending more money than they can afford. 55% of people said that. Number 6, gossiping about others. 26% of people said that according to their survey. Number 7, 2 more, being jealous or envious. 24%. Number 8, and the final one, 18%, viewing something or looking at something that they know that they shouldn't. These are just a small amount of things that we are tempted with every day. And you know what? The things that one person is tempted with is different for somebody else. We all have our own Delilahs in our own life. The things that we know we shouldn't do, but we end up doing it. And tonight God is asking you to bring it forward, to lay it down, and to not be weighed by those chains that are so heavy sometimes. God's saying, hey, guys, I want to relieve you of that. I want you to be free. I don't want you to be chained down to something that is not good for you. And so I don't know what that looks like for you tonight. I don't know what is weighing you down, or what's that thing that just keeps getting you. But I challenge you tonight as we go into worship, as you get a time just to sing to God, maybe that's a time for you just to hand it over and say, God, here it is. Here's this thing that's distracting me from being with you. Will you take it? Will you take it away? Will you pray with me? And as we pray, what I would love for you to do is just to hold your hands out in front of you. I know so often we just like grab hands and that's great, but tonight just hold your hands, palms up, just in front of you. As an act of you just handing, it's like you're handing something over. So close your eyes, hands up. God, there are so many things in this world that tempt us.